Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another installment of the Quickview series, which is also a little bit of the teardown. We're doing as much of a teardown as we are a Quickview. The subject on the bench today is the Reefs XP aluminum shock. We're going to go full forensic, and we're going to tear one down, look what it looks like inside, and then we're going to fill it up with oil and see what it feels like, because there's over here on the second monitor, I have all of the stuff where they talk about all of the nifty little things. Before we get into the teardown, let's talk about the fact that this is a 90 millimeter shock. Are my eyes deceiving me? This is a 90 millimeter shock eye to eye. 3 millimeter shafts. They announce a 7 millimeter diameter piston, 9 millimeter diameter shock body. This is pretty much in the standard of your please focus, thank you. 10 millimeter shock springs, and they're touting their little adjustable cup down here where you can dial preload into your spring via the little cup down at the bottom. That sword is decidedly double-edged. For many folk, I believe that the dialing in of preload is probably not necessary, and that is additional machining, and it gives you both a proprietary spring cup and rod end. So those are unique to this shock. It is not something that anyone would be replacing with any great frequency, but it is nevertheless worthy of mention. Also, the rod end threads onto the shock shaft in an amount that I would call a lot. That is a lot of thread, probably 10 millimeters. Closer to 12? Is that 10 or 12? That is a full 10 millimeters of threading at the bottom of the shaft there. Allow me to convert Susan into shock building formation, because it just adds a little bit more contrast. And then to add even more contrast still, our good friends, the paper towels. There is our proprietary, and there is our shock spring. They are 10 by 32. And when we say 10, we mean on the inside. And when we say 32, we mean the uncompressed length. The cap is it depends on how you like to count your pieces. The cap and this bit are separate. They are held together with a singular screw from the inside. Silicone O-ring, a nice big silicone O-ring at the top. And I see no real provision for bleeding while filling. There's no line, there's no bleeder screw, there's none of those things. We have the shaft and piston, which are, that is a 7 millimeter piston, and bonus points, that piston is retained with a lock nut. No eclipse is absolutely fine by me. From end of shaft to end of shaft, it is 45.7, let us call it 46 millimeters. They claim that the uncompressed, the 90 millimeter shock, is 70 millimeters fully compressed. All three of their shock lengths, it is available in 80, 90, and 100 millimeters. They all claim 20 millimeters of travel, which is odd. Typically, the point of a longer shock is to get more travel, but it says that the 80 is 60 compressed, the 90 is 70, and the 100 is 80. So I genuinely don't know what to do with that information, because typically a 90 millimeter shock will have about 5 millimeters more travel than an 80, and a 100 will have about 5 millimeters more than a 90. You basically split the difference. We have 3 shocks of different lengths that all have the same amount of travel. We have a fairly unique / proprietary seal with a lip on it that goes into the seal cap / spring cup. That is nicely done, because they've done a little extra machine down taper on the body, which is pretty much entirely cosmetic. We have a singular plastic spacer. Oh, I realize that is very white on white. And then we have one more plastic. We have one more silicone X-ring. Those X-rings are definitely Traxxas-esque. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Traxxas shocks tend to leak the least. The seals themselves, this little fella right here, are 7 by 2.2 millimeters. The spring pocket is 6.5 millimeters in diameter and 7 millimeters deep, and then is a 6.5 by 3 millimeter spacer. So when you put them all together, you have a little bit of preload built in because you have about 7.5 millimeters of seal and spacer, and you have a pocket that is about 7 millimeters deep. So you're getting a little squish on them. Somebody did their homework. Like, we have preload on the seals, and there's nothing wrong with that. The bore, as measured, the bore in the shock is 7.2 millimeters. And as was mentioned in the nomenclature, we have a 7 millimeter piston, and that is confirmed. Calipering the piston, they are indeed 7 millimeters. A 7.2 millimeter bore on a 7 millimeter piston is absolutely fine. It does also say in their information that it is optimized for 30 weight, 350 CST oil. How long have I had this bottle of 30 weight? Well, when I bought it, it cost $3.50. So a hot minute that has been in my possession. It comes with this spring, 10 by 32 with a yellow band on it. They sell an assortment to go along with it. The Reefs XP shock springs in soft, medium, and firm. I have rated all of them, and again, props to Reefs on this one. The medium, let's start at the soft. The red band soft is 0.4 pounds per inch, basically the same as a deluxe ultra soft white band. The yellow, I think they were shooting for 0.8. All of the ones that I measured are 0.75, so a little softer than that. And then the blue band, aka what they call firm, is 1.2 pounds. So those are nice, even steps. From what I can tell from reading, the 80 millimeter and 90 millimeter shocks use the same spring, and the 100 millimeter shock uses a longer spring. I think this is the perfect point before we start putting oil in them and putting them back together, that the shocks themselves are $50, 50 American dollars per pair, and the springs are $10 for the assortment of 3 pairs. Now, Deluxe, to me, with the DravTech, is the industry standard for expensive shock at $38 a pair. You basically get this same arrangement of parts for $38 a pair. The assembly on these is significantly easier. They're basically no tool. They come with the pistons installed. You just stick all your bits together and you put it together. What they do have, though, is proprietary bits. The DravTech is just designed off of the old Traxxas big bore, the 2660. So the parts and all of the consumables of that are readily available wherever you are at any time. You can build up a set of DravTechs or Traxxas GTS or any of those just using off-the-shelf available parts. This is a fully boutique shock. Nothing of this is common with any other shock. I tried to look on the website. They have optional colored shock bodies, $17 a pair. It's kind of a lot. I was looking for a shock rebuild kit to see what replacement seals would cost, but I don't see that. And I also don't see any replacement parts for the shocks. So what I'm saying is, if you want to buy 2 of these shocks, you want to buy 2 pairs, 4 shocks to outfit the whole vehicle, and then you want to buy 2 sets of spring packs so that you have the full adjustments, you're going to spend $120, plus whatever tax and shipping. And as spares are not currently available, and one would hope that they would become available in the future, should something terrible befall your rig, you misjudge how close you are to the end of that ravine, and you go a-tumbling, should you bend one of these, I don't know what your recourse is. Now, disasters like that are, by and large, few and far between, but it is nevertheless something that I would regard as a concern. Parts availability. It's much like if you're going to buy a printer. What's the first thing you check if you know what you're doing? How much does the ink cost? How much does the toner cost? How much do the refills cost? If it's a thermal printer, how much does it fit standard rolls? So when we're talking about this shock and the fact that it is very much its own thing, that is not explicitly a hack against the Reefs XP. A Kyosho Velvet is a Kyosho Velvet. And by that extension, a Trexis Big Bore is a Trexis Big Bore, and a DravTech is just a Trexis Big Bore. A Trexis GTS is GTS. You can't put element parts in it. So this is fairly common industry-wide. But a lot of these other shocks, the half-mentioned element shocks, have just been borrowing technology that's been around from Team Associated for 40 years. And the Traxxas shocks, I think the Big Bore shock debuted in like 2006. So they're closing in on 20 years old. So you can build yourself a Big Bore. These, you know, if you want them in a different color, and are they in another color other than gold? They're sold in pairs. They are in gold, orange, and blue. $16.99 a pair. If color of the shock is your thing, I think the Henry Ford principle of you can have any color you want as long as it's black, I think just sticking to the black ones is probably fine. Because of that 3 slot, they really purge the air quickly. Let us see. If we get this threaded in a little, can we squeeze out the excess? Sorta. They fill easy. But when you tend to get that big blurb of oil out there, it tends to try to squinch the seal out. We're a little over full still. Should we just purge a little bit more? They fill reasonably easy. If they're optimized for 30 weight, then they're operating on a different planet than I am, because without a spring installed, I would regard this as underdamped. This is underdamped. I would say 40 weight is probably closer to where I would want to be on this. Maybe 50, depending on the weight of the rig. Again, that's not a problem. The shocks do not come filled. You have to fill them yourself. And if you're going to buy this shock, I don't consider this to be a positive at all. I was going to say a positive or a negative, but I would not consider anything positive about the, and they even tout it, it's close. It's underdamped. It's underdamped and slightly over full. No bleeder port, no bleeder slot, any of that is going to make the shock a little trickier to fill. You're going to squidge a little more oil out than usual. The fit and finish on them is really quite good. We get about the amount of wiggle we would expect. These came pre-filled in from the person who sent them in to be evaluated, and they're all clean on the outside. They hadn't leaked at all, which is fine. And that sort of an X-ring with that sort of a pack, I think that they're going to stay. They're going to keep their innards inside. And if you run them upside down, I think you'll be pretty well served. But that comes to the ultimate question, which only you can answer. I cannot answer this question for you. If you were to ask me directly to my face, should I buy these? I would say, well, what are you looking to get? Like, do you enjoy the look of this? Is that little slender waist? Is that a thing that you're looking for? It's $120 plus any taxes and shipping in the United States to get a set of 4 in black. If you want, say, gold ones, you have to have a real Reefs commitment, because that is an additional $34. I would like it a lot better if Reefs just sold the shocks in black, gold, orange, and blue. Wouldn't that be nice? Charge us, it's fine. You can charge us a little bit extra for the colors if you feel so inclined. But if you go to DravTech and you want to buy a set of the aforementioned DravTechs, you can only get them in black, red, orange, green, blue, purple, pink, gunmetal, silver, and gold. And the cost of black, red, orange, green, blue, purple, pink, gunmetal, silver, and gold is it's all the same. It's just the same. They are $38 a pair. You do have to put them together. And they are definitely not as easy to put together as these. These just fall together. If you don't want to fiddle and you don't want to faff and you like the look of it and you're absolutely fine, it is different for everyone, you're absolutely fine with $50 a pair for springs. For shocks. And then the spring, it's not bad. 3 pairs for $10. It's cheaper than Deluxe. That's $333 a pair. Deluxe will sell you 4 pairs in their variety pack for $16. So that's $4 a pair. So it's slightly cheaper for the Reefs. So if nothing else, and you get 0.4, 0.8, and 1.2. Those are all good rates. I would actively recommend these. Like the 32 is a little short. The 32 is a little short. And I do have question marks. The Deluxe Ultra Short is 78.5 millimeters full, 62 3/4 compressed. So that's 15 3/4 of millimeters of travel for an 80 millimeter shock. The next step up is the 92 millimeter shock, which is 92 and 71, 21 millimeters of travel. Remember when I said it's usually about 5 millimeters? And then you have the big, what Deluxe calls a medium, wildly, the big long ones, which are 106 eye to eye, 78 compressed, 28 millimeters of travel. The mind-boggling thing about this, I'm not at all surprised about $50 boutique shocks. Chronics are $90 a pair. Velvets are close to $90 a pair. These are extreme boutique level shocks. The absolute unvarnished truth of it is Traxxas big bores are $27 a pair, $26.95 usually. And then you have to supply your own cups and springs. By the time you're done, you're in for about $70. You're into about $35 a pair. Any level of performance or perceived performance above that is 100% want and 0% need. Because Traxxas got the big bore so right that it is largely unchanged in 20 years. The seals works, the shafts work, the bodies work. 10 millimeter bore. If you give me a shock with a 7 millimeter bore, and I do like Traxxas GTS, if you give me a shock with a 7 millimeter bore and one with a 10 millimeter bore, I'm going to take the one with the 10 millimeter bore. More oil volume means that in an emulsion shock, the air and the oil mixing together is going to be more consistent for longer, and you're going to have to rebuild them less often. This is a very niche shock. It is very well made, and it is well appointed, and based on the rest of the market, it is not grossly overpriced. But I can't tell you to buy them or not. There's nothing about this shock that would explicitly make me say you should absolutely not buy this. This isn't a 10 Pro shock. A 10 Pro shock is a shock I would advise no one buy. If they were half the price that they are now, you know what I would say? Still don't buy them. I think these are a little expensive. I would like to see exactly what you see there at $40 a pair, and I would like to see exactly what you see there in the 4 available colors for $40 a pair. But I mean, it's not how business is done, I guess. You know, it's about keeping the lights on. It's about let's turn that brightness down. It's about keeping the lights on. You know, this is not a selling point for me. The adjustable preload cup. We've been using little rubber O-rings to space the a lot of people are like, why do you run those tiny little springs? They're thinner and they cleaner and they look more scale. Do they perform better? No. You can't futz with preload if you need to, but you can on these at the expense of a proprietary cup and a proprietary rod end. So you can't, you can put a different cup and a different rod end on your $50 shocks, which seems counterproductive. So I don't have anything super bad to say about the Reefs XP. They're a little too expensive. They're a little too proprietary, but they do not appear to want to leak. You can make them fit a vehicle. I don't know why all 3 lengths of shock would have the same amount of travel. That's weird. But it's better than bad. I feel like if I was going to put a numeric score on it, 7.5. I don't personally, this is the editorial part of the bit that is me personally. Editorially, I don't see a specific place for this. We have 80, 90, and 100 millimeter options that are cheaper and keep their oil in and are available in a bunch of colors and don't have explicitly proprietary pieces. In a pros cons list, this shock doesn't present enough pros for me to buy it. But it also doesn't provide enough negatives for me to say you shouldn't buy those. The odds of you bending a shaft in one are extraordinarily low. If they can hold the oil in, that is fantastic. There are a lot of shocks that are not easy to bleed. The first time you ever try to fill a desert lizard shock, you will question everything. And they do have a bleeder line in the threads. Doesn't mean they're not an absolute nightmare to fill. These are well made, easy to assemble, a little squidgy on the oil. We've got a little bit of proprietary piece action going on. The shock spring assortment is absolutely competitively priced, but it is a needle in a stack of needles. We have, thankfully, options. This is an option. It doesn't leak. It's a little bit of a quiz. It's a little bit of a quiz guy. If it was a little cheaper, I think it could be regarded as a better competitor against DravTech. But money in my hand, and also, I should point out, I would be remiss. When I mentioned $38 a pair for DravTechs, that's unassembled. You have to put them in together yourself. If you opt not to put them in together yourself, they charge you $10 a pair. They're $48 a pair. They're basically the same price as these. Head to head, I still have to give it to the DravTech because Traxxas set a standard those years ago and the DravTech just follows it. So, spring availability, seal availability, all of it definitely leans. And that is before we ever mention that this is an emulsion shock and a DravTech is a bladdered shock. And a bladdered shock, a non-emulsion shock, will offer superior performance across the board. So, there you go. I'm not telling you to buy them. I'm not telling you not to buy them. And honestly, when we get to the end of one of these, that's a nice place to be. Because you can make the decision. Mechanically, they did right. Good seal, no E-clip on the pistons. Is no E-clip on the pistons that big of a selling point when you can't really change out the pistons? When you're never going to need to change the pistons? When they don't offer you additional tunable pistons? Do you see where I'm going? If you get a DravTech, you can put in 2-hole, 3-hole, 4-hole. You can drill the holes out because they're not slot. Do you see what I'm saying? If you're not a fiddler and you say, I need a 90 millimeter shock to replace my leaky 90 millimeter shocks, this is an option. If you're a person who is tuning that shock explicitly for performance, you will be much better suited heading over to the Deluxe website or picking up some Traxxas big bores and assembling them and building yourself a shock out yourself. So there you have it. Take it as you will. And as always, questions, comments, and concerns in the comment section below. I thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time here in the Canyon. In between now and when we meet again, please one and all do your very best. Have a good run. We'll see you again here for the Canyon with some other thing on some other day.